You ready? Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Town of Delafield Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Take the roll, please.
Supervisor Mahoney-Ogden.
Present.
Supervisor Miller.
Here.
Supervisor Wolfley.
Present.
Supervisor Berkowitz.
Present.
Chairman Kranek.
Present.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, citizens' comments, public comments from citizens regarding items not on or not on the agenda. The board may not engage in discussion with the citizen making the comments. Individual presentations are limited to 3 minutes, and citizens shall follow the rules set forth in Section 2.04, paren 1, paren D of the Town Code. Is there anybody who'd like to make any comments? Seeing no comments, I'm going to close the citizen comment period and move to item 5, approval of the December 10th, 2024 Town Board minutes. They're in our packet.
Make a motion to approve the December 10th, 2024 Town Board minutes.
A second.
We have a motion and a second on the table to approve the minutes from December 10th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item would be actions on vouchers submitted for payments for accounts payable and payroll.
Make a motion to approve checks number 68211 through 68229 for $45,170.76, and checks 68235 through 68254 and 68260 through 68306 for $9,663,243.24. Additionally, move to approve December 20th payroll for $17,720.85, January 3rd payroll for $18,547.01, and January 17th payroll for $15,459.27.
A second.
Motion and a second on the table to approve accounts payable and payroll. Just to clarify that big number
I was
for
just gonna ask.
accounts
Thank
payable, it's the schools getting their money for the this distribution from the sale from the property taxes. That's why that number was so big.
you.
But there's a motion and a second on the table to approve accounts payable and payroll. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item, communications, there are none. Unfinished business, there is none. Item 9, new business. Consideration of appointments to fill one supervisor position expiring April 30th, 2025, and 2 citizen member positions, both expiring April 30th, 2026, to the Town Plan Commission. Let's take the 2 citizen member positions first. They're both here and they both applied. Mary and Joe Schmidt have applied and expressed interest to serve on the Town Plan Commission. Their resumes and their applications were in the packet. I think that I appreciate their willingness to serve and would look for a positive motion to appoint both of them to fulfill those terms. And if there's any questions for them that you would like to ask prior to voting, you can ask them. We can ask them to the podium and you can ask them any questions, but I don't foresee that happening.
Motion to approve Joseph Schmidt and Mary Herrick, correct? To the citizen positions on the Plan Commission, correct?
The questions now, or wait for you to wait a second?
Well,
I'm asking at
either or.
Chairperson. You said we could ask. Thank you for applying. Just quick question, just to understand, just for the future even, when we need to fill positions, how did you find out about it from a tap on the shoulder and invitation, or because I know we also posted it, the open position. So I'm just more curious, and that's the one question, and the second question is, I know, Joe, you've come before us before, but Mary, what do you think you can I mean, I did read in your packet, and thank you for putting all that in, but what's your interest, and what do you think you can bring to the commission?
First, I went online to look for it.
Great.
My neighbor asked. So I went to the website to find out.
Okay, I just was curious. Oh, it's good to know. Thank you for the feedback.
Background is what I did. Tourist. Oh. Telling them because I'm actually a genealogist.
Oh,
The historian, I go that way and you go the other.
that's fun.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion and a second on the floor.
We don't
Yeah,
have
we
a
need a
second.
Haven't
second.
done a second yet. I second.
Well, Joseph, do you want to, have any comments, anything to add?
No, I've expressed interest in the past. And, yeah. Yes, I applied. So, Tim,
Great. And you go by Joseph or Joe?
I go by.
Good pick.
Motion by Supervisor Wolfley, second by Supervisor Miller, to appoint Mary and Joe to fill the two citizen positions on the Town Plan Commission with terms expiring April 30th, 2026. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. So prior to the first meeting in February, you're going to have to get in touch with Michelle to fill out your oath and do the paperwork and stuff, so. And
Chairman
then,
Krennic, I have a question. Did we approve and pass the motion on both individuals? Yes. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name in the motion, sorry, my bad.
so then the next item would be, because Supervisor Michaels is no longer on the town board, he was the town board representative on the Town Plan Commission, so there's a vacancy. I would recommend that we nominate Supervisor Wolfley to fulfill that term until April 30th, 2025.
Second?
I can't second, yeah.
I'll second it.
Second, yeah, yep, second the motion.
So motion is second to appoint Supervisor Wolfley to serve as the town board representative on the Town Plan Commission with his term expiring April 30th, 2025. Motion is second on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Abstained.
So it's 4-0 with one abstention. Yes. Next item, consideration and resolution authorizing the write-off of uncollectible personal property taxes. This is from our administrator.
Per my memo, the collection of personal property taxes is coming to an end. We only have 2 people left. We've attempted to contact them 5+ times without any positive outcome on those attempts. So we're hoping that we can ask you for the write-off with the option that if we do eventually get a hold of them this year and they do pay, that we can put it into the books, but we don't foresee that coming. So the amount that you see there is for the 2 remaining personal property taxes, and that would close out personal property tax for the town of Delafield unless the state law changes back.
So I look for a motion to adopt the resolution that was in our packet to authorize the write-off of
Motion to approve the resolution to adopt to authorize the writing off of the uncollectible personal property taxes.
Second.
Motion is second on the table to adopt resolution number 25-671. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item is consideration of an ordinance to establish design standards for outdoor lighting in residential areas as recommended by the Town Plan Commission 4-0 at their January 7th, 2025 meeting. Engineer Barbeau, do you have anything that you want to add to fill us in on where we're at I mean, we were all at the Plan Commission meeting, but.
I missed that last part.
We were all at the Plan Commission meeting, but if you have anything you want to add or report.
I think the only thing that was, there was a request to get some advice from the town attorney regarding some language about, I believe it's related to the maintenance.
Maintain.
Yeah,
And I think, yeah,
So I did include a copy of the original submission that was before the Plan Commission, and then there's a revised copy in there that includes the recommendation from the attorney on there. So we would be tonight voting on the revised edition.
Just where it says, and therefore maintained.
Correct.
Okay.
I guess, and what was the attorney's feedback on that language?
So he understood what the intent was of trying to get it to go, beyond just the initial construction of the property. But he wanted to include the word therefore instead of just including the word maintained to give it a little more longevity, essentially.
I mean, I'm going to ask the same question I've asked in all of these, so what, then that puts the building inspector on the hook to inspect the lights, and what teeth does the building inspector have to write a ticket or enforce the removal of?
We don't have anything in place right now specifically for the enforcement of it. The initial construction of it would be on the building inspector, but he does not indicate, or he indicates that in his contract, there's nothing with regards to enforcement after the building permit has been approved and sent out.
Right. And so there's not, I mean, building inspector has the ability, certainly doesn't have the ability to revoke a occupancy permit,
Correct.
can't issue a citation.
Correct.
I'm not passing something that can't be enforced. So I'm happy, hold on,
okay.
let me finish. So I'm happy to pass this without the and thereafter maintained, because then they've got the ability to say, here's what it is, here's what you have to start with. But I'm not interested in passing something that has no enforcement mechanism. I will again say that I was happy to also vote for and approve the ordinance that would have had the enforcement mechanism on the HOA and not the town. But I am not going to be voting for something that would require enforcement beyond we have the means to enact. So.
It was my understanding that the reason we decided to put this in section 18 was because we're laying out our standards in our land division ordinance, that thereafter maintain would be our hook to be able to get that into whatever HOA or condo docs were created for that development. So it's my understanding that the onus for any enforcement would be on that HOA or condo association to enforce that, and the town wouldn't really have any need to have an enforcement mechanism because we would get that up front in any new developments.
Well,
That was exactly what I thought that's why we did it this way, and that's why we.
Well, we
as opposed
had-
to keeping it in chapter 11, we did it on.
we had one
18.
on the table that was specifically around the HOA, like language, right, which that was chapter 11, 13, I don't remember, 11. And so that that one, I guess, help me understand how these are different when this does not apply necessarily to the HOA enforcement and enforcement ability. Like, there's not any language in here that says, okay, you've got a HOA requirement, right?
We tried that when we met with Newman. I remember discussing it with him, and we tried it then, but he said, well, you don't have a lighting ordinance in place, so if you do, I will follow it. So then we kind of decided as a group, okay, we need to quickly get a lighting ordinance in place, so.
Well, again, when I think it was either Supervisor Michael's last or second to last meeting, when we talked about it in Chapter 11, and we were both ready to vote on it to approve it with the enforcement via the HOA mechanism, and you guys wanted more, which at the time I was not willing to contribute to. Supervisor Michaels was not either. So it didn't go anywhere. And now this is under Chapter 18, which is building code, which does, I mean, even in here, it doesn't have anything that references the HOA portion. So, you know, I mean, I am fine passing this without removing the and thereafter maintained and passing this as is and going back to Chapter 11 and leaving what was when we discussed in Chapter 11 as it was, right? We can't do all that tonight because that's not on the agenda.
Right.
But like I have a real problem, as I've made it clear a couple times, passing an ordinance where there is a piece that we don't have a control over on the maintenance or on the continued enforcement, and not interested in fielding the phone calls when we can't enforce it and somebody's upset about it.
So then what do we, I mean, since
Well-
Chairman Kranek and I are both understanding that's why we put it here, what are we missing, Michelle or Tim? How do we make, because I think that's why we thought we were doing it at 18, so that it comes off. I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
so I thought
Well,
this is
just to
why we were
clarify.
doing it.
So the first ordinance that came in front of us was in a Chapter 11. And that's where we really found and discovered that there were gaps in the enforcement mechanism of it. And that's why we went back with the attorney and Tim and, Dan, when he was here, and decided that the best route was to get this in Chapter 18, our land division ordinance, so that we lay out our design standards so that anybody coming in to, want to create a new subdivision or a new development in the town clearly sees that we have design standards for our outdoor lighting, and that this is kind of what we're going to ask for in any HOA documents. And the reason we went this way was to put the onus on any enforcement or enforcement thereafter to be on the HOA or the condo association and not on the town, realizing that we just don't have the
Means to do it, right.
resources to do the enforcement, and we don't want to, pass anything that we're going to have, because I don't want to field the phone calls either of people
Right.
who.
And so I guess that's what the, I think the pushback from you guys through the HOA was it didn't apply to everybody, right? That it was new construction, right? If it was new construction and you weren't in an HOA, right? So if you tore down a house and you built it and there's no HOA, right? Like that piece from Chapter 11 would not apply to that new construction, right? So what still leaves where I still have an issue is now if you pass this, well, okay, great, so an HOA may have the language around this, but you still don't have an enforcement mechanism around new construction outside of an HOA.
Oh, yeah, we totally agree, and we talked about that, came up at the plan commission meeting. But
Right.
that's like another agenda item.
Well, no, but so what I'm getting at is this additional line, while I understand the intent and what the goal was, makes it sloppier, right? So without that, this applies to all new construction anywhere.
No,
No, it doesn't, it's just subdivisions.
It's just new subdivision.
That was the focus. We wanted to focus on a new construction within a subdivision, any new development, not new construction individually constructed, built.
Okay?
And I do think that's a great idea, but we can't talk about that today, because this
Well, no,
is just about.
I don't,
Not there yet, so.
it's fine, I'm, again, and thereafter maintained, I guess I'm,
By the HOA, I think, I mean, really, the understanding is by the HOA, because they will have they will now see that when they get their building permits, they will now see that just this new subdivision, and any future new subdivisions will have to abide by this. Right now, not any new building permits. Again, that's something we can talk about in the future, but the way I'm reading it, and that's why we took it out of 11 and put it here, was so that we could get something in place for a new subdivision specifically, because we have one coming up soon, and I think even Plan Commission understood if we don't get something put in place,
Yeah.
it's I think it was quoted, it'll be the Wild West. So I think, Joe, my understanding is that we don't have to. It's therefore maintained, meaning the HOA does it.
well, then,
That's how I mean, I think it sounds like.
again, I'm
Chairman
not,
Kramick.
I'm clearly not trying to, like, say absolutely not. No, I'm not interested in having a definition of around lighting. I just want it to be clean,
Why
right?
would-
So,
is
Step
that
towards
why
the
the
right
attorney
direction as
put
far
that
as
in?
what we want to
Yeah,
accomplish
this is
ultimately.
a
and that's
first
fine.
step.
And so is there the ability to clean up then and thereafter maintained, right? Or enforced by HOA or maintained by HOA? Like, we're like four words short in here, is I guess what I'm getting at, right? And I don't know.
Well,
if-
I mean, I would defer to the staff to help
Yep.
clarify
Yeah,
what the intent was here.
Yeah, I think, and I think the intent really is to take this language, which is we in our code, and we can insert it onto plats and documents like the deed restrictions and so on and so forth. I think what, if I understand you right, the gap here is that there's nothing in this code right now that says that we're gonna do that. We don't, I mean.
Right.
Should we add language that says that the intent of this the town shall, I'll just say.
The onus of
kind
enforcement is HOA
Force
or-
the HOA to incorporate this in their deed restrictions and
Something,
enforce it.
right, because I guess if you're reading this, if I'm reading this, right, and not versed in where this is pointing to, right, I'm going, okay, well, it's no longer maintained in this capacity, like who's calling the town and saying, all right, go fix it, and now all that's happening is, now the town says, well, that, we intended to make sure that the HOA was going to
Right.
enforce that, right, so, I'm not, it's not a no, it's just, we're almost there, right?
We'll get there.
We're like,
I think
we're like
the
4 words
purpose
short,
is-
right? So is there the ability to say, and thereafter maintained as follows by the HOA? Or, like, what's the,
As we talk, I'm trying to think of ideas of what we can do, but maybe we
Well,
can make a statement in there that says, can we add a statement that says that, the town shall,
or no HOA?
make, I just want to, I don't know the exact words, but make the developer insert this in their declarations and and on their plats.
Well, I feel like
Would
that's,
that be enough? Is that what you're saying is?
I feel like that's already in there if you read the whole entirety of all the whereases of, the town administrator recommends the town implement additional standards relating outdoor lighting when new developments are being constructed and.
I mean,
town admin-
obviously, this is a solid contingency, right?
What's that?
What we put in place here is is basically putting a contingency on the permits, the permit process.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, I guess, you have to meet all of the standards to get occupancy, essentially. So, and again, I guess that's where I feel like we're missing the part, and I'm happy if it's in here and worded differently, show it to me, but missing the part that clearly defines that the and thereafter maintained is to be on the burden of the HOA.
Well, since our attorney looked at it, I think it would, maybe he didn't think, my guess is that's why he put it, I don't know. But I guess this is where we have to ask staff probably to clarify. I hear what you're saying, and if we just need to add those few more words by the HOA, I think that's what we're all intending it to be,
Right.
too. So if
Right.
you think we need to wordsmith it, maybe that's a question back to Tim and Michelle to see, does that need to be?
I mean, if you want to add the words by the HOA, you can include that as part of your motion, and then we can, kind of sort of pending attorney review, and we
That's-
can report back if it's acceptable, or report back or put it as another item if he doesn't think that that's
Yep.
a good idea.
And I'm fine with that, and I think just as long as I'm also happy to take input on how or where where that should be inserted on there.
I think right after where you already indicated, that's the obvious place, unless the attorney reads the whole thing and feels it's covered in the ordinance. So I think what you're trying to accomplish is what we all were trying to accomplish. It's just, let's just confirm that it's worded like it's supposed to be worded.
Yeah, and, and thereafter maintained,
In the declarations of the homeowners
specific, right,
associations.
as a continued rule within the HOA covenants. Again, I'm not,
There's a specific way to
yeah,
word it.
literature was not my strong suit, but,
There is an option for you to table it and just, I think you've given staff direction that you want to make sure that this requirement is enforced by the HOA. If you table it and you want to allow us to work on the language and give you some language at the next meeting, we can do that.
I guess I'm happy to submit it and vote on it with the, pending review per the town attorney, because I don't want it to go so long that an HOA doc has already been created. But I guess that's why as long as we can be as clear or concise as possible, I'm happy to take the suggestions on where to put those. If you guys think that that's right, and thereafter maintained by the HOA, I'm happy to.
I think all you gotta do
Add that.
is ask that staff clarify the enforcement mechanism is by the homeowners association or condo association, and the onus is not on the town.
Great.
I mean, but since, I think before we decide, if we're going to motion or if we just table it, can we all each throw in some other thoughts? Do you have anything else, because you're chatting? Yeah, because I just had a couple things too, but if you've got more, why don't you continue talking?
That was my only, piece on, again, where I'm all for getting rid of some of the glare
Okay.
and dimming the stuff, but I just want to make sure that it's not an added burden to the town and it's done as cleanly as possible, so.
My thoughts, again, just historically speaking, Supervisor Berkowitz, and I don't know if you had any opportunity to go back to any old meetings or read some of the old notes, because the town has talked about lighting over the years. So as you kind of heard us reference, we started off with Chapter 11, and Tim laid out a pretty detailed, and I called him today because I just wanted to make sure and he had a lot of things, and there was some great stuff, and I think, as Ed said, we realized there's some enforceability issues. But then, as I'm reading this, I just feel like I'm with you, we're so close, but I feel like there's a few things that we could maybe just add to it that are still enforceable. I don't think it changes the enforceability. One of the things is and there's just a few, but just so setback, and again, this was going back and reading some of the original draft ordinance that Tim had presented. Right now, under A, it says all electric fixtures should be set back a minimum of 3 feet. One of the things in there, and I thought I could add on to that, not facing the neighbor's properties. That was in one of the original drafts. So that's just a comment there. We don't have to fully talk about it now, unless you want to just talk, I only had a few. So that's one of them, not facing the neighbor's property. Thoughts on that? Again, it was in his original draft. It's enforceable. Again, the whole thing would be, it's not enforceable by us. When they're coming to get the building permit, they would just, if they've got lighting, just making sure it's not facing out to the neighbor.
I mean, I guess well, let's hear the whole list.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, that was mine. Okay, my second one was about the directed and shielded, again, in Tim's original thing, he talked about cutoff fixtures, using cutoff fixtures, and that's just pretty simple. That adds on to that one. And then number C, This one I feel like we need to get a handle on. And it was in the original draft, and I want to even bring attention to when High Ridge did their update, just like last month or so, when they did their update about many things with their declarations. One of the things High Ridge talked about was that the, lights were not to exceed 2,700 in color. And then Tim can probably do a better job of discussing it, but the reason that's important is I think, and we're seeing this kind of around the country, I feel like, because there's too many outdoor white lights versus soft yellow. Especially, I would actually think the subdivision would appreciate it, that it's consistent, and so that you don't have one neighbor having the white and the next one having yellow. So, even just aesthetically, it looks pleasing to have everybody have, if they're gonna have their light on, at least that it's in the same volume. So my suggestion on that one would just be, I don't exactly know where it goes, but perhaps it would just be towards the end of C when we're talking about trespass, or just we have another letter, which I did ask Tim. It isn't the end of the world, but it would just be with, less than 3,000, or even what High Ridge did, they did, theirs is 2,700. So that you're you're looking at white, warmer whites versus white. And they'll at least be matching, and you won't have, there's somebody I know on Oakton, they have two lights, one's white, one's yellow. And I drive by it all the time, and so that is my list there. And I've always felt, again, it's not in here, but again, I still feel like No Dusk to Dawn should be in there someplace. The whole security thing, just that, no dusk to dawn, except for obviously if people need to have security lighting. So those are my few little comments.
I guess regarding the setback and the shielding, I feel like, it can't shine directly on beyond the property line, so I think that's kind of covered. I mean, it doesn't necessarily say use cutoff lighting, but I think if you read between the lines, that's what we're trying to say, is use cutoff lighting. What are other people's thoughts about defining the color of the light, or do you feel that goes too far and is beyond the original intent of what we had discussed previously?
I would agree with Terry on, personally. However, I don't think it's for us to decide subjectively what colors people like and don't like. And I'm a 2,700 guy myself, but
No idea.
not everybody is, and I don't think that's the intent of this ordinance. I think we're going way too far when we're doing that. With the setbacks, you're thinking side by side. What about subdivisions or HOAs that have a house right behind you, and now you have your deck in the backyard, and you're telling people you can't light it up? And so, again, when we start getting too detailed with some of these things, you're going to be getting a lot of phone calls from people who are going to have a lot of problems saying, well, I can't do, this is crazy. This is the color I want, or I want to light up the backyard. And I don't know if you're intended on the side or on the back, but there's 3 other sides on the front.
Well, I think the intention to, and actually, you actually led me to the last thing I didn't even mention. I think this paragraph that was in one of the original, the letter came from Chairman Ed Kranek on the July, and it was just this paragraph that was in something originally, and it hasn't appeared, but I think it answers, to answer your question, people want to light up the backyard, but that's exactly what we're trying to say, maybe as a town, that maybe this chapter is to protect their health, save energy, preserve the beauty of the night skies, improve nighttime public safety, utility, and security by restricting the nighttime emission of light rays, which are the source of light trespass and or necessarily
Tell people how
glare.
they can recreate in their backyards.
And or necessarily restrict. I think it's basically just, we're trying to make our town not so light.
Well, it's right
I
there.
don't disagree with any of that, but we can't tell people how they can recreate in their own property in their backyards. That's taking it a little aggressively far, I think.
And you realize there are other communities that do. And I think my response is, well, then don't build in the town of Delafield.
Well, I don't
you know?
disagree with that, but
Go to city of Brookfield.
I think we should be looking at what their ordinances are.
We have, and that's what, I mean, and Tim
And-
did, Shaniqua's, Village of Oconomowoc Lake, there's some great resources.
I mean, the other municipalities have very strict, very detailed ordinances but like.
Again, a lot of these lights that we're talking about that people put in their backyards are low voltage lights that are covered in this shielding, you know, saying that you're not gonna have this obtrusive lighting, you know, going on your neighbor's property and you're gonna be neighborly. But again, that is defined in here, that you're not gonna have this spotlight, that you're not gonna have these other things. So, you know, again, I think if we get too detailed, you're gonna get too specific, and again, it's gonna create other problems. So I don't think there's a need to get specific. I don't think we need, you know, you have 3 feet from the property line. Somebody has a fence and they light up their fence, we're gonna tell them they can't light up their fence, it's on a property line?
Especially if it's below the fence line, right?
You
Which
know,
that's a
and
popular.
a low voltage light, and now it's subjective.
I mean, and to your comment, I guess I do feel that we should take a stance as opposed to, you're right, if somebody says, I don't like to, well, then don't, my comment is, well, then don't build here.
Well, right, and again, you don't like HOAs, then don't be part of an HOA. You know, so we could say all of these things, you know, down the line. So again,
Does anybody have any thoughts on the Kelvin? Because especially, I mean, I was encouraged that our, you know, again, one of our, this community is literally right next to this, and they've already said it in there too. And so I think, to me, it's also kind of, we're supporting what they did on their own. They said in there it had to be 2,700 Kelvin.
I mean, again,
I think you got neighbors around there that it's been pitch black, and now it's gonna just be, I'm trying to avoid the subdivision next to Ed, that you go by and it's just like, you know, and if.
I get it. I mean, I
And-
fully, I
And
understand.
they, you know, Brian said that what we put in place, they will follow. And this right now is, remember, and so it's not, to clarify, it's not for any, the way this is written now, this is not for anybody who just goes and gets a building permit. This is specifically for any new subdivision. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with putting it in there so that you don't have what's happening, like one night when you drive by and you've got one person they have 2 lights, one's white, one's yellow, maybe, it just, especially white is just so bright, so. I don't know, I don't feel like it's going too
Have a
far.
problem when we drive by somebody's house and one light is red and one light is green?
Yeah, well, not at Christmas time.
Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. How about in the middle of the summer, July 4th?
Well, personally, I would put that in an ordinance, true, that the only time you can have colored lights is for the holidays, but that's just me, you know, so yes, but that's just,
That's going too far, I
yeah.
think.
So I mean, but I didn't propose that, you just asked me personally.
I share your OCD, but I don't agree.
I mean, when you talk about a shielded light that's only directed, so it's not visible beyond the property line, right? So you've got a shielded light not visible beyond the property line that's over 2,700 kelvins, that's gonna be uplighting for a house. And an uplighting for a house is generally gonna stick on the house, right? And especially since it's got a shielding requirement, you know, and if somebody wants to uplight the front of their house at 5 o'clock in the middle of the winter, I don't have a problem with that. So, I am happy to vote on this with a adjustment to the clarification of the HOA. And if you want to table this and bring something back that addresses these other items, then you can make that motion. But I'm, tonight, happy to vote on this with the added specifications about the HOA enforcement.
Tim, do you have any feedback on, I mean, especially with what High Ridge did and you know, just like knowing what we're trying to accomplish to just darken our skies a little bit about the Kelvin, about where that would fit in, or how, you know, if we did table it and had you go back, how would that look? I mean, so that the board could agree that it would be something that's.
In our earlier version, which was back in August, we talked about Kelvin, you know, we wanted the color, you know, any outdoor lights had to be warmer tones, which is below 3,000 Kelvin. That was kind of our, you know, and we even say to reduce blue light and glare. So that was that kind of was our recommendation at that time, because we were trying to address this issue. So, you know, I think that's that gives people a guideline, you know, but it does come down to a policy decision by the board as to, you know, do you want to regulate telling people whether it's a subdivision or if this gets put into a more broader code for the community to say, we're going to regulate what lights you buy. And I think that's where it gets, you know, we've talked about that numerous times, is, you know, and I know Steve Michaels was concerned about, you know, when you go to Menards, you know, people don't necessarily look at and say, well, is this below 3,000 or is it not? And they just,
Don't understand it.
they don't,
This light is burnt out, I've replaced it, and oops, I didn't realize that this one's yellow and that one's white.
and this one's on sale, I think I'll grab
Right.
those, you know. I mean, the concept is, yeah, it would be good, but I think that it's just difficult. Once again, it's education of the people, but then it's also, we get into this enforcement of this 3,000 K, then how do we do that?
I am happy to have
Opposed to
this
the HOA, but
and all of the newsletters you want with recommendations of Calvin levels and anything else. But like when you make it ordinance, I'm happier to ease into it than
But keep
club
in
'em
mind, when
on
we
the head
say an
with it.
ordinance, this is just, it's not a universal town ordinance. This is just for this, you know,
Okay,
any
if you
new
make it-
subdivision. So I think that's the beauty of it. It's
yeah.
enforceable.
But what do you want to? But what do you want to do with it?
Ultimately, I think we can learn from this. So why wouldn't you start off like with something a little more ideal? Learn from this, continue to educate, and then hopefully in time, we can, you know, have our whole town be a little bit more respectful of light. But I think.
Exactly,
I
but-
think we have we have the opportunity to start fresh, and we have a developer that said that he would follow a lighting ordinance. So I don't know why we wouldn't just say, you know what, we're concerned about, you know, our dark skies. So we'd like to have you, we don't want glare. And even though blue lights tend to have more glare. And so it's fact. I mean, under 3,000. So
Blue
then
lights
when
have more glare if they're unshielded.
I mean, well, yeah, definitely. But
So I mean,
that's-
we've got the shielding
Right.
portion there.
Well, and especially if we
Well,
put,
again,
well, we didn't put this, especially if we put in there about using cutoff fixtures, then you know you're not. I mean,
Okay.
that's
Well-
another little tidbit we could put in there, but.
I'm going to leave it to you. If you would like to add all of this in some capacity and motion to table it, address, add, again, I am not, I could not tell you I would vote on that. But if you want to pass this as is, or bring it to the table to vote on it tonight as is with the HOA portion, that I can certainly get behind. So whatever you would,
Well, and historically, Supervisor Berkowitz, we didn't even vote on the last ordinance, which I remember thinking, well, we had great discussion, and Tim spent an inordinate amount of time. It was because he looked at all these other towns. There aren't a lot of towns that have residential ordinances, but we looked at some of the other ones that are, few of them are on lakes, and again, nobody's exactly like the town of Delafield. But the point of the story is, we did already look at it, and we didn't vote on it. And I think the reason I'm bringing it all up now is, we are a new board. You're not Steve Michaels. And, you know, Steve, so I think the question is, and for anybody watching, is you've expressed some feedback, so I'm grateful to hear where you're at with it, since we haven't talked about
I support a
it.
lighting ordinance. I support all of it. I think we just have to be careful about nitpicking this. And I'm a 2,700 guy too, and I'm still saying you gotta be careful about nitpicking it to death. I think that naturally speaking, I don't think that I've seen any subdivision over 3,000. I mean, I'd love to drive by it. 2,700 has been the standard for ever until really LED bulbs came about.
And I think that's,
This is a recent, change here in the environment for outdoor lighting, so developers, especially in commercial lighting, they're not working with stuff over that, they're not. Now, these spotlights, these unshielded things, that's what we're really out, here to protect against, and that's what this is covering.
What's your opinion on no dusk to dawn, specifically with lampposts? I mean, I understand that, security lighting, if you're trying to get to your sidewalk, everybody has different opinions on that, or if they're.
yeah, but that's,
how about,
right there is part of the problem, right? Everybody has a
So-
different opinion.
So if
Well,
you're,
that's what I'm
again,
asking him, 'cause I
I'll give you
can now.
my personal opinion is the second my family goes to bed, I turn off my lights. I love it dark. So, I mean, I fully support a lighting ordinance. I also support landscape lighting. I think it makes the homes look beautiful, especially in these HOA subdivisions. So again, I support them lighting their stuff up. I don't think there's any need for it to be dusk to dawn. I know that there was mention at last Tuesday's meeting, I forget who brought it up, but his lighting guy came in and said that they only do something a certain way. I can tell you, I just had my landscape lighting done as well, and I have all the options. I can turn it off at free will. I can set it to hours. I can also set it to dusk till dawn. So I'm not familiar with a landscape lighter who's telling us what we heard at last Tuesday's meeting. I don't think there's a need for dusk till dawn, though, in an HOA in Delafield. I don't see a need for it, and I'd be fine with there being literature saying that there shouldn't be, but again, I think that I'm not hearing a major problem from a ton of people either, that they're pissed off in their HOAs about their neighbors' lighting. I think we heard one or two cases about a spotlight, an unshielded light.
I think we have gotten comments about lights.
I'm only
It's-
going based off the
Yeah.
last few weeks since I've, injected myself in the conversation. I'm very familiar with lighting. I have 25 years experience and expertise in lighting. So, I mean, I can talk to you guys about lighting.
Can you clarify what you just said though, about, you said you don't have a problem with putting in no dusk to dawn in the language?
I don't think that we should be telling people that I'm against dusk till dawn personally. But I don't think we should be telling people that if they want to light up a tree or keep their front lights on in their house, that they should be told they couldn't do that. I'm not following why we're telling people they have to turn off their lights at midnight or 1 o'clock.
I think
Well,
it's what some of our neighboring communities have done to protect our night skies, so we can see the skies.
Right, but we're the town of Delafield, we're not Shaniqua. or
Love
the-
it,
so-
but I see Highway 94 from where I live. You guys turning off the lights in Thomas Farms is not gonna change me seeing the stars.
Well, we're gonna see the SEH building too, over in the city too, so, I mean,
Which, I mean, I don't want to see any of it. I mean, I very much moved out of an area where I never saw the stars to see the stars. I'm very much for lighting ordinances, but I think we have to be careful about what we're doing and the results we're going to get. So, again, that's why I bring up the few things I bring up. But I'm all for an ordinance.
And
I
for
think
clarity,
it's-
because
for-
we haven't talked about it either, but on a similar page, and especially when we have no enforcement mechanism. We don't have a police department like Shaniqua does. We don't have someone that is on the payroll in any way capacity to enforce any of that throughout the town. And that is my, we get to a spot where you got a police department that works 24/7 and has all the gear in the car, like, propose that in the budget, I guess, but I don't think people are gonna have an appetite for that kind of impact on their taxes. But, until then, I'm happy to have something, but it's gotta be clean and concise that can be enforced without adding additional headaches and work to our town staff.
and I think this is.
That's what this is.
And I think
Yes,
this is
and-
what.
and that's why I'm willing to vote on
where
it.
we're at. And I think, honestly, if we amend it to include the clarification of the enforcement mechanism, we've been at this since August, going back and forth, and this is really, at the end of the day, what we came up with. And there's huge opportunity to educate the public about their lighting. And, I think we can pass this and, the public can go door to door and start educating the people about their lights and kind of find example of lighting that, doesn't necessarily fit in with the neighborhoods of the town of Delafield.
Is there a place, Tim, again, I think that this paragraph, when you just asked why are we doing this, Scott, I think this paragraph answers it, that it was in Chairman Kranik's July correspondent to us that under the purpose, it was just quoted, he referred to, that's why we're using this chapter to protect our health, night, save, that save energy, da. Where could that, I think especially if somebody's looking at this ordinance,
Well,
where can we
Well,
insert
it's,
that anywhere?
it's in here in the whereas. Whereas the town board finds that additional regulations to protect against potential light trespass by requiring adequate light shielding will benefit the health, general welfare, and safety of the residents of the town of Delafield and will improve residents' use and enjoyment of their property.
I think, okay, oh, you know what, I think let me wordsmith this a little bit here. I think I like this one better. Let me do the two here. So it's referenced a little bit. I just think this one had some things that I just thought was a little more appropriate. And my other question to you, Tim, is the Kelvin. Is there something that you think that could be added to this if we did, that would address that perhaps our fellow supervisors here would agree with? Are you guys just saying, doesn't really matter if you put in Kelvin's?
Can we ask, with your expertise and knowing the town and neighboring towns, have you seen in HOAs the use of really anything above 3,000? Honestly,
No,
anything
no.
above 2,700?
No, just some of the codes have 3,000
Right.
in there as the number, or 3,200 Kelvin, but I mean, 3,000 seems to be the number that's recommended. But, as far as how they enforce that, how it comes out, I don't know how the mechanics of it works on a day-to-day basis. And I will admit that there's a lot of lighting ordinances out there. No one lighting ordinance is the same, and some are half a page and some are 7 pages. And you talk to different, if you talk to the different communities a little bit, they'll say, some are enforceable and some are not. I think they're trying, if you have something in there, then if there is a complaint, if you say we're gonna respond to complaints, then you got something to go with. You got something that says, well, I don't like that spotlight. Then we would have some way to go back and say, well, there's no spotlights allowed. But we run into a problem when you get neighbor against neighbor, and they're not, they don't want to be cooperative. They want to be, they want to have angst between them, and that's one way to get them. Oh, I'm going to get them on lighting. And then we have to go through the process of trying to enforce that. I mean, this is real. This is what happens with codes, is if they're not.
Well, we've seen it. It pits neighbor against neighbor, and it just is not a good situation. Historically, the town has not, inserted themselves in neighbor disputes, so.
I mean, signs is a classic one that I don't want to get off track, but signs was in the last
Yes.
year, it's been like, well, that person has a sign that's, 5 square feet larger than what's allowed, so go after that one. And then that person says, well, what about that one? And, Dan was chasing around.
It's a slippery
signs.
slope.
Yeah. And lighting, will be the same. It
Right.
will be the same, because it's just not hard to make one clear, concise code. We all have different opinions on this.
So I'm happy to enforce this, or pass this, and you want to add to it, like down the line, 2, 5, 7, 10, yeah, whatever. All those discussions can happen if we find that there's pieces that are missing, but pulling things out, or enforcing something, or passing something that it gets way too complicated and way in depth, and then we have to try to back things out or deal with the arguments, is just not anything I am here for.
And that's kind of what we learned with our commercial ordinance too. So I mean, I would, if you want to make a motion to approve this, that would be great.
Yes. Motion to, conditionally approve the establishment of design standards for outdoor lighting in residential areas as recommended by the Plan Commission 4-0 at January 7th, 2025 meeting, with the condition being that we can clarify the onus and enforcement being written into the HOA rules for a new subdivision.
Can we add on to that these a couple of these items can be also just reviewed, since we're going to be, or are we not? So we're not voting on it again. So what we're voting on, so we won't see any more wordsmithing, we'd be just voting on. I agree we need to get something in place, and I'm happy this is here.
Right, so right now, the motion I've made, without a second so far, is that the only difference being on the language, including some type of pointing back to the HOA, right? And that somewhere in there that is acceptable language that our town attorney can come up with, or the administrator, or what have you, and they get the thumbs up. And if they get the thumbs up from the town attorney, then this would pass and be ordinance, and we would not see it again. If you are, and
My only
I am
other-
not,
okay.
but if you are interested in adding things, then you would want to make the motion to table it, and then it can go to a vote on either end. But if there's a second.
I will
We always
second.
amend later?
Well, I mean,
You could go back and go through the whole
of
process
work,
to
yeah,
change
to
the
do.
ordinance. Right, but once we have this on the books, you can't be like, oh, hey, actually add 2,700. Like, you'd have to go all the way through the.
Well, that's why I would motion, I know we haven't seconded, I would motion to table it, just add the therefore maintained language with our attorney, and just
I
make sure
cannot
there's nothing else we can.
tell you I'm going to vote on it if you add Calvin limits to it.
And that's why I was trying to ask Tim, is there some way something we can do that, and maybe I'm not saying the words correctly,
Want to second that?
at least, to make it acceptable for,
Oh.
and again, we had a new board, that's why I didn't know what Scott's opinion was.
I seconded it.
Oh, all right. Well,
Oh, wait,
yep. So,
I have a second, I have a first and a second.
Yeah, I seconded the
all right,
motion. so,
perfect.
I mean,
Should we vote on it as is then, or as proposed?
on the motion to approve with the clarification on the enforcement by the homeowners association, all in favor, say aye.
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 I'm voting in favor of it, and I'm looking forward to further discussion.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0.
Perfect.
Next item, review and approval of agreement between the town of Delafield and R.A. Smith, Inc. for municipal engineering, planning, and information technology services for 2025. Engineer Barbeau or Administrator?
No, I don't have it here. Why, do you want me to? That was this is for the
Light.
lighting thing, so.
Take it away.
Really, it's the same contract that we've had for the last, whatever, I don't know, a long time. So it's, the only thing that changes usually is the budget, which Dan put together, and then our rates go up about 3% per year. Mine stay a little bit lower. I give you a discount on my rate, still high, but we give you a little discount. What I should be charging,
Thank you, Tim.
which is okay, but,
No, it's basically the same agreement that we've seen over the years.
Yep,
And the
yep.
budget is all in there, and you worked with Dan on that, so.
Yep.
I look for a motion.
Motion to approve the agreement between Town of Delafield and R.A. Smith, Inc. for municipal engineering, planning, and information tech services for 2025.
Second?
Motion is second to approve the contract. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion passes 5-0. Announcements, planning items. Tentatively, there's a town board for Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. I'll work with Michelle to see if what's on the agenda or not coming forward. We may or may not cancel that meeting. And then there's a plan commission meeting on Tuesday, February 4th at 6:30. And then item 11 would be motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
A second.
Motion is second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned 5-0.